Greetings, welcome back to my channel. So today I decided to make a small video about the fairly recent hobby I started, and the hobby is 3D printing. Back in last May I had some extra disposable income and I decided to make a jump for it to purchase my very first 3D printer, because as I checked, the prices were more than reasonable these days compared to, let's say, 5 years ago when I was looking at it for the last time. So I got the 3D printer that was recommended by many and is considered very good value, and until now it's really proven itself as that. It's a Creality Ender 3 Pro. I purchased it back in May for around 250 euros, which is no, 235 actually. And it was a nice journey of discovery to different temperatures, slicing the models to make a good print, cutting the models if it's nearly impossible to print them without it, that kind of stuff. And I want to show you kind of a bit bits and pieces that I printed. It's not all of them because many are actually spread around the house. Many are usable items, like for example those hooks that hold my Star Wars vehicles. They're also 3D printed and they're screwed down. Very useful. And so are many others around the house. So of course, when I started printing, I checked out many videos on YouTube, like by popular 3D printing channels like Maker's Muse, 3D Printing Nerd, Chap, and CNC Kitchen, which were very helpful when it comes to using correct settings to make the model come out as good as it can be. And I'm very pleased with it. To show you a handful what I made so far, like for example, everyone who starts 3D printing, he prints of course a Banshee, and as you can see, it looks absolutely gorgeous. It came out like that. Some of those kind of the small distortion, like waves, was because the belt wasn't tight enough. After I tightened the heater block belt, then this issue disappeared, and I'm quite pleased with it. I also, during this 6 months that I print, I also tried out bigger nozzles, which is a small hassle because you need to change the nozzle, you need to heat it up, you need to hold down the heating block with a wrench, then unscrew the nozzle and screw in the new nozzle, and then mess around in Cura Slicer when it comes to special settings that come with big nozzles, because they're very different compared to the standard 0.4 millimeters. So this is printed with 1 millimeter nozzle at 0.6 layer height, and it still came out very solid. I actually forgot to put the seams in one place, so those empty like indentations, those are kind of the seams that spread all over the model instead of being in one place. But it's very strong. It feels so very solid. The reason I make use sometimes of the bigger of the bigger nozzle is to print low detail items, like for example, as you can see here, a remote control holder. I have 2 of those. I printed both of them with 1mm nozzle, and it saves a lot of time in printing. With 0.4mm nozzle on standard settings, this thing would take over 12 hours. With 1mm nozzles at the setting that I used, it took just over 4 hours, something like that. So that's a massive time saving, and I'm not a fan at all of long prints. I prefer to cut up the model and print it in smaller parts. Then I would want to wait, like for example, a day or more that some people do printing on, because that annoys me. It's simply I don't have the patience for it. Another, for example, is here we have original Mego Spock. Spock, hang on, Captain Kirk, my mistake. And as you can see, I printed a captain's chair with it. So it's made out of 3 pieces: the base, the control panels, and the chair. They're all glued. Those two are glued together just with regular super glue, and this one is just snapped in, so it rotates. And I actually also printed a phaser for him because he was missing one. I will print it again eventually when I get the right phaser color that is required for this one. Another one of the great examples to print in pieces, I use a program called Meshmixer. My sister requested this one, so it's hers. I just saw it showing it. Like you see, this is a highly detailed model, detailed all over the place. It has overhangs. It has a lot of rounded parts that are floating in the air. So a lot of these things. In one go, it's impossible. It's going to be a mess. And I actually tried it a long time ago. It's something that I would not advise, or you have to do a lot of supports, and supports are annoying. When it comes to supports, I try most of the times to do prints without them, just to avoid them, because they are annoying. They leave things of they leave signs that they were there, and that's why I want to avoid them. So this one was sliced in several pieces. So for example, I think 4 or 5 pieces probably, and then printed in pieces, and then glued together just with super glue. As you can see, this is how it turned out. No overhangs, no mess. Everything is solid and clean. So that's how I do it. There's also been like it's awesome to make replicas of items that are quite expensive online when it comes to online. Like for example here, as you can see, just move the Death Star out of the way. Here we have the Good Samaritan, the gun from Hellboy. This was a very, very cool print. It took me a while. I think this print was spread over 3 days, probably working hour prints. The longest part was about 6 hours, I think. And it's actually it does things. So it opens up. It has the rotating barrel. It has the bullet in it. It closes down. Not many things actually are super glued here, but many have those silver pins, also 3D printed, that are pressed in, which is a very annoying job, but when it's finished, it's great, and it holds everything very steady. This is the handle with, of course, the the Ministry logo that is featured in Hellboy. And as you can see here, some pieces are simply impossible to print without a support. Like this frame piece, it needed some supports because there was no flat surface to put it on. So the supports were pretty much only here. I remove them as much as possible, but sometimes you just cannot be without them. So I also printed a stand for it, as you can see here. Part of this stand has a dual color print. So it started in red, then I changed the filament, then it finished in silver. Then I also printed some bullets, and then I also printed the Ministry logo in two colors. I started in black and I finished in silver above, so it's the black is visible underneath within the cracks, which makes it look very realistic. Then we have things like this. It's a PlayStation control stand, very useful. And of course, how on earth can you, when you have a 3D printer, not print Baby Yoda? So this was printed quite interestingly. As you can see, there is a seam going right here. I sliced it in two pieces and I printed one like this and one like this. It's to avoid most of the supports and to print the hands as accurate as possible, because or else those would be quite annoying. And it turned out absolutely great. It sits next to the Star Wars Black Series figure that I have of Baby Yoda already. And another model, one of my favorite aircrafts, it's a Pilatus, a single-engined turboprop. This was a fun print. The model on Thingiverse, one of the biggest websites where you can get free model files from, had this, and I actually loaded it up in Meshmixer, and I found out that the model is actually in pieces. I was able to split it in all the pieces that it came with, and print those pieces individually. The wing is one piece, which was the trickiest print because it almost took the whole from left to right diagonal of my print bed, but it turned out great. And like for example on this matte PLA, there are some imperfections. The reason for this is because I only figured out a bit later that this PLA needs to be printed in lower temperature to get the perfect print from it without any imperfections, like later on this Hellboy. And some other little knickknacks like coasters, different sizes, different thicknesses. Another gun prop that I made just recently. This is actually the first 3D model that I painted myself. So usually because I didn't have the correct gold color, I painted this one in white, sanded it down, and just applied a couple of layers of gold paint. So it's a golden gun from Man with the Golden Gun, a James Bond movie, classic. And it sits proudly next to it. And then one of the last models that I have on hand, it's this one. It's the Death Star. It was a two-part print, the top and the bottom, which was quite easy. And I printed also a stand for it, so display would be a bit great. So what can I say about the 3D printing hobby? I absolutely love it. It's great. I can actually really make anything I want, especially now that I understand many things about 3D printing, how to cut up model, how to slice it, what to look for, that kind of stuff, and I'm very pleased with it, and will continue using it for probably for years to come. Do I advise you enter this right now? Especially, yeah. The printers are costing less and less. There are some very good brands that provide quality printers that have very little tweaking on them needed to start printing right away. And it produces great results, as you can see here. I'm very happy with how everything has turned out. And it's also very handy for around the house. Printing stands, printing coasters, some other knickknacks, like printing boxes in spiral mode, which makes it one layer, but it goes in one go without, and it makes it finishes the print much faster, especially if you do it with a 1 mm nozzle at 0.6 layer height. Then it's going to be very strong and very reliable and long lasting. So this was a bit of my overview with when it comes to 3D printing. Two pieces of software that are absolutely essential is Meshmixer and a slicer. The slicer that I use is the most mainstream one. It's called Cura. It's a free slicer, but it's built by a company that also makes 3D printers, and I'm so far very happy with the software and doesn't really need anything more. If I need to do some adjustments, like I said, I use Meshmixer. I'm still learning bits and pieces of the program, but it's a lot of fun. And like for example, the figure that required the most of Meshmixer interference is this one. This is Antman, and this figure is printed fully without any kind of supports, and it was cut up in pieces by Meshmixer and then printed out in pieces and just glued together. It looks great. Even small pieces like those hoses are also present, so it's a very essential essential piece of software if you really want to print anything that your eyes can lay on, that you can lay your eyes on. So thank you for watching, and until the next time.